And I'd just like to give a little background from my perspective on you, Ricardo. Pull up the very first email that I ever received from you, sent on October 28th, 2019, where you voiced your volition for why you wanted to learn the grammar and get involved in it, and why you contacted me. And you pretty much just said you wanted to teach it, you wanted to learn it so that you could teach it to those in your community. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, something like that, in that nature, yes.
Well, if you could just give the viewers and myself a little bit of background on you, your history, as much as you want to share, and a little bit more details on that email.
Well, I initially, how I got into quantum grammar was I was looking for a solution to be able to get around, and that was one of the biggest hurdles, because I never really had a what you would call a driver's license per se. I don't know if I tell you that or not, but my driver's license was actually mailed to me. I never really went to the DMV and got a driver's license, just because I was driving, just driving, and I get pulled over so many times, and they decided to just send me one. And shortly after, they suspended it and revoked it. And so I still had to get around, and I contacted a few lawyers to try to find a solution, and I couldn't get any solution, any help. And they told me flat out that there's nothing they could do about it. And so, I was looking for something to be able to move around without getting hassled. And so I looked into the law. I believe the first platform I went into was TJ's. You probably heard of TJ website in his
You are law.
You Are Law, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I followed him for a few months. I was a member in his website meeting page, and I wasn't quite satisfied with his teaching. Although I've tried, I've attempted some of his teachings, and it was just still like when I'm in a court and I don't speak the language, and I'm listening to them using big words, and I'm like, okay, I would like to use these words too, but I don't know what they mean per se, in the sense that I'm not sure, how to utilize them. And I heard about quantum grammar prior to getting into TJ's meeting, and he would also talk about it, and I would always ask him about it, if he could create a group where we learn this stuff. And I never got a clear answer, but I remember one time I saw a link to your channel on his website, and I clicked on it, and that's how I got in contact. I got your contact info, and I expressed my situation.
Well, that reminds me of, I don't know if it was you or if it was someone else that told me that a link to my YouTube videos were actually in the paid members section of TJ's website, which was very interesting.
Yeah, if you scroll, it was all the way in the bottom, and that's where I found it. Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to bring up was the juxtaposition of the fiction versus the fact. That you were talking about the language. When you walk into court, they were using all these quote unquote big words and things like that. Well, the whole thing with that is that they go to school for 7+ years to learn the lingo, their own, whatever you want to call it, secret little language in their secret little club. And so what I think, what attracted me to quantum grammar was that it's the same principle, only it's more sound. We're learning a technology so that we can create our own courts and our own jurisdictions. But we have closure on the grammar that anyone can come in and participate with it. Well, it's funny that you brought what you just brought up about, as far as knowing what you're doing and creating verbally on the spot, sentences. That was a big part of my learning process, was to speak correct sentence structure out loud a sentence and then say it backwards and try and remember what the sentence was and say it backwards. And I just addressed this in a live stream that I did today, actually, where someone was saying you have to know the song before you sing it. And I said, well, let's take that to a deeper level. Let's go in depth with that. You don't necessarily have to know a song before you sing it. You can improvise. What you do have to know is the location of the notes so that you don't go sharp or flat.
Yep.
You know, if you mean to go a whole step up, but you only make it a half step, you don't know where that note is. So this is like with correct sentence structure. If you know the mechanics, you can improvise. You can use it in a improvisational scenario.
Yep. I agree 100%. And people shouldn't overlook this grammar. It's a very good tool to have. I personally feel it's working well for me. I have used it in several arenas. Usually you're not gonna get like a yes, I won out of the arena, but you would see something that you don't usually see, or if you're not very attentive to it, then you actually end up digging yourself in a little bit more hole, because sometimes you have to realize the forces that you are up against and how they operate. They have one level it's not like they won't say, oh, you got me, or it's like a level where like, I think you got us, but we're gonna make it look like we won. Take it as that. And then, but if you feel like you have cocky, you still want to go further, then that's when you kind of, you gotta know the language of the system as well that you're going against. You don't want to prove something. You just want to stop the trespass instead of trying to, because the system has been defrauded for as long as we know it. And it takes a unity force to really kind of change that. So it's not going to just take one person to just automatically change it, because it's a circle of things going on. So navigating and learning the language and moving respectfully and knowing when you have won in the way that you have won, and accepting your won and moving respectfully, then you know how you're using the language, how you're using the technology.
And to take it one step further, you can get out of that sort of competitive mindset if you choose, and take the winning and losing out of it and just determine whether it's successful or not. Yep. Because if you go into a situation mentally thinking about winning, then that means there's a loser. So with the position of peace and neutrality and the balance of the honor and the grace, those types of things don't fit in. It's a win-win situation for everyone. So what normally happens, like you said, the fiction isn't usually like, oh, you got me. Darn it with your correct.
How did you do that?
That doesn't happen. What happens is they just leave you alone.
Or they might give you a slap on the wrist, even though you might feel like, you got to know how there's some things too in life one may have to take accountability for. It's your own action.
So we've done 4 workshops together, and I mean, all I have to say is that you keep your word. You are with the honor, and there's a certain to be honorable in your contracts and in your day-to-day living. You gotta stick to the business, right? But you're just a stand-up guy. And I can, I sensed it since the beginning. So right away, I knew that you were on YouTube for the correct reasons, for basically doing what you were saying you were doing, teaching the grammar. It's pretty straightforward.
So in those workshops that we do now, ladies and gentlemen, these are confidential workshops. So what's in the workshop between Pascal and I, we won't be discussing here, but we can discuss generalities about them. Like, I try to find a way to describe the way they work. All right. So it's sort of like and from my end of it, I look at it as you're walking into a classroom and I'm teaching. However, you're the only one in there. And however fast or slow you're motivated to go or wherever you're at, I try to meet you on that geometric level playing field of knowledge cultivation and sort of not spoon feed you, but guide you to the closures that you're willing or motivated to reach for. Now, that's my end. Now, from your end, is that an accurate assessment, or do you feel that something different was happening?
No, I think that's accurate. What I would say is that it's for sure an adjustment for the student to make, because I think it takes a long time to grasp the material as well as how to study it. I mean, it's easy to say that it's straight, that the technology is, I'd say it's simple but complex at the same time. But
I know what you're trying to articulate
yeah.
there, because when I was a student myself of learning it, it seemed so complex to me at the beginning. It was so difficult for me to do it and to try and learn it. And I almost gave up so many times, but it seemed like I reached certain epiphanies until it finally clicked. And then I was like, one of those hand to the forehead things where, how simple is this? It's just really simple.
Exactly. Well, just 2 weeks ago, I had an epiphany where I got to the next level of understanding of writing a correct sentence structure. And it's just motivated me to continue. So I've actually taken your advice that I've heard you say about doing it every day. Even if I'm at work on my break time, my cognition is working, and I'm hitting that wall of learning where, okay, this is the next thing that I don't get. So how do I solve this problem? And you are available on other platforms for me to ask questions. I just have to learn how to reach out. And I do have to say that I understand how a lot of people might find you, I forgot the word there, intimidating, because it's just the level of knowledge, or it's just daunting for a lot of people to straighten up and contact you and say, okay, I want to contract with you and be 2T. But I get how daunting it is for a lot of people, and I get why there's so many lurkers on YouTube that don't say anything, and they have a pseudonym, right? Because it's like light shining, right?
I've wrestled with that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I've wrestled with that, and I brought it to the attention of the community on my YouTube channel, where I've mentioned that people say that about me. And now that I've, with more knowledge and people such as yourself sharing those types of perceptions, that I don't think it's so much me. It's just that most people don't appear to, they're not used to someone being so direct about something all the time, which is the way my style of teaching this. It's sort of a vetting process where if each the way that I communicate with you or anyone else is part of the vetting process, where if you, for whatever reason, lack the capacity to be able to put one foot in front of the other to move toward your goal, well, then that's a safety issue and you're probably not ready yet. Until you're ready to take this step or that step, and then I'll be there to help you along. But you have to take the step. I can't take it for you. But if you have to walk in there, you better have a dictionary. You better have that closure with you, if not physically, but here. Because if you don't, then they're just going to use theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
That's like the first thing that I ask everyone, a lot of times that I speak to about this. Do you have a dictionary? Because if you don't take stewardship of your words, someone else is going to use them to control you.
Yeah, exactly that. I was helping a guy out today. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but it's to do with bailiffs. And I said, well, when he comes up to you, he ain't the author of the document. He's not creating. He's carrying out on behalf of someone else. Now, so he's got no authority straight off the bat. Now, if he's going to start saying, right, here's me authority, da da da, say to him simple, what does that word believe? For instance, believe, what does that word mean? What does this word mean? What is that? If he can't give you closures to what them words mean, he's lost all perceived authority because they've got none anyway. Any perceived authority over you. Because by default, if you've got your own dictionary, if I had a bailiff come to me and says, well, you don't know what that means, let me grab my dictionary and I can qualify it. Guess what? By default, we're using my jurisdiction. I've now got authority over that, and that's not perceived, that's genuine. Because the document's only as powerful as the words upon it. And if you can't give definition, well, no, wrong word, if you can't give a finite meaning for those words, it means nothing.
And in a general sense, I'll just outline this real quick here. That's the mechanics of how correct sentence structure works in a foreign vessel and dry dock. If you walk in there with your document, contract, postal vessel, court venue, with the flag mechanics, postal mechanics, banking mechanics, grammar mechanics, you have that with you. You posted your roads, i.e., you've given notice that you're going to be there at such and such, juncture in the now space. And you walk in there into that well of the court, you void all the boxes and planes. Your document with your dictionary takes jurisdiction over that well of the court. Why? Because the 1 by 1.9 flag is the flag of the land during the time of the contract. It is literally the flag of the well of the court. That's why it works.
I mean, I don't even know any of that stuff about posting roads. I know of it, but I don't know the mechanics of it. I don't think that's something I definitely intend to learn. But I mean, I've had first-hand evidence with the Metropolitan Police. I wrote letters to them. A pal of mine was involved with them, and of course, my pals, they're scaffolders. They don't know any of this sort of stuff. 9 months he had a case going on for. This was over Christmas last year. I says to him, Jack, do you want me to take a look at it, mate? He goes, yeah, go on then. So I was having a look at it. I wrote one letter using his email, and 6 days, flash to bang, everything got dropped. An NFA, no further action. Everything was dropped, and all his equipment returned to him. That went on for 9 months, and that was using correct sense. And I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of it, like yourself. I'm just a geezer that likes kicking hornets' nests and seeing what comes out. It's as simple as that. But what I have done has worked. That's one case. I've got another pal, Patrick, and exactly the same kind of scenario, though this went on for 5 years before I got involved. Sent a couple of letters, incorrect sentence structure. I says, here you go, Pat, use this, mate, use the other. And it took a little while longer, but all of a sudden he phones me up one day and he's like, they're having a barristers meeting. I says, well, get yourself in there. He says, I asked. I says, I can't go in. I says, well, insisting going in there. They're talking about you. Get yourself in there. Now, he was with 4 pals. That's wrong, 3 pals. And none of them were allowed into this barristers meeting. Anyway, 24 hours later, after this document I sent in, everything got dropped. Everything got dropped. I know I syntax to the best of my ability, not saying I'm sure I'll probably find faults in it now, but perhaps I weren't too far off the mark because, very shortly after I got involved, they dropped everything.
And that comes to the most important thing behind any document, contract, postal vessel, court venue, or anything you do. It's volition. It's the most important thing. If you have correct volition and your grammar is not 100% correct, I predict that you'll have a beneficial outcome. If your grammar is 100% correct, but you have, excuse my language, shit volition, it's probably going to backfire.